Well, happy noon on Thursday, everybody. Hope you've had a great day and ready to join for just a couple of quick Wall Street Journal updates from today's Wall Street Journal. Read the entire thing cover to cover, both sections, and got just a few to pull out today and try to do something new to share a graph on the screen with you today to show you some statistics, see how that works. But be great hearing your input and great hearing from you. So thanks again for joining me. First article, steroids appear to be really helping to treat serious COVID-19 patients. We've got another report in, another research that of 678 severely ill patients. Now, these are severely ill, hospitalized patients. Those that received steroids, 33% of them died, and those that didn't receive the steroids, 42% died. So we've got much more information now that says steroids are really helping severely ill COVID patients. It appears like it dampens the effect of the overactive immune system. This is one of the problems they've got when they're seriously ill and they've got all these other comorbidities, as they call them. And I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it right, cytokine storm is what happens, is all these, this immune system of the sick person just goes into hyperdrive. And it seems to dampen that, the steroids do. So multiple different steroids, by the way, they tested, I think, 3 different kinds. So another good news on reducing the deaths in steroids. So the observation I've got, and I'm going to try to share a screen here with you. So this is one a screen that I pulled up that shows, and I know it's probably a little bit hard to read, but you can see in the months of April, March, and April, and May that the very high death count, over 5,000 deaths per day in the U.S., where we're down below 1,000 right now. In fact, I think some of these charts are showing just a few hundred deaths a day right now. This is by age, by the way. So that top red bar, is the highest age group, and I can't read it from here. I think it's 85 and above, if I remember right. So overall, you can see with all the hype about all the testing and all the positive cases, that death rates have really come down. And so my point in bringing this up is that an observation that I've got is that the death rates and hospitalizations have come really way down since the COVID hit. And our masking and social distancing and the lockdowns and the hand washing, are they really masking, and no pun intended, the gains that the medical community has made in treating serious patients? Because at the end of the day, the ultimate test on how well we handle COVID is how many people are dying, right? I mean, that's the ultimate test. And it's the ultimate punishment from a very serious disease. So a very serious virus. So, doctors have figured this out. They use the ventilators less. Remember when they learned that they were using it too much? They used it less. And of course, they've got steroid findings now. And they got plasma, and they got remdesivir, that medicine that really seems to help. Hospitals have worked really well on isolation, ventilation systems, PPEs, and so on. And obviously, nursing homes, one of them that I believe we should have started on real early on, have figured out how to handle the spread of the disease much better than they have in the past. So while I think masking, social distancing, whether the science will prove itself on that in the future. I think we got to give a lot to the doctors and the scientists at our hospitals that are really working on how to cut that death rate way down in a lot of very sick people. So, article number 2, closely related, the government's canceled all ventilator contracts that they had outstanding. There's now 120,000 ventilators in a stockpile. And by the way, many ventilators have been given to other countries. And so we got plenty of ventilators. Observation on this ventilators, what country could have pulled this off? The quantity of ventilators and to quickly convert private companies like Ford and GM and others to quickly making ventilators and making them in the volume that they made, and by the way, giving them away to many other countries. I really can think of only 2 right now, and that it's an interesting observation. China and the U.S. that could have pulled this off at this scale. I don't think anybody else could have. And so a lot of observations about how bad a country we have here in America. And this is maybe evidence that we're a great country and can do great things working together in a very short time period with very few resources. So under a lockdown, right? Keep going on that. Article number 3, U.S. debt is the highest since World War II. So it's projected to reach 100% of GDP. That's the gross domestic product in the next year, physical next year. So physical next year starts in October 1. One of the observations is it hasn't affected the investors. The increased angst among investors is non-existent. The investors are rolling forward, and as you can see, we had a great stock day yesterday, investors seem to have shrugged this off, which is amazing. It's the highest since World War II. That's the late 40s, so that's really significant. The other observation is this has been fast happening. So in 2007, debt was at 35% of GDP. 2007, right? A mere 13 years ago. So, and by the way, those that want to pin this on a president going to have a tough time doing it. I mean, Obama, when he had left office, it was at 76% of GDP. Obviously, he had the Great Recession that they spent a lot of money to pull out of. And Trump is at 79% right before the pandemic. Obviously, the pandemic has changed that number. Whether you want to, assign that to Trump or not, probably depends on which side you think is causing the problems with debt. But certainly the last tranche of debt, the $3 trillion, came from both sides of the aisle and was signed by the president. So it's hard figuring out who to blame for it. So at the end, we owe more than the entire U.S. economy can produce in 1 year. So that's the extent of our debt. Huge amount of debt. Article number 4, California does not pass police reform. Now, when you think about this, this is amazing. California has a Democratic governor, a supermajority in the legislatures. There is nothing to keep them from passing anything they want to pass. And you heard it all after the George Floyd, and it kept going on, on the other, whether you want to call it police brutality or not, you could see that Democrats at least were saying we have to have major police reform. Well, the legislature just rested for the year in California and didn't get any reform signed, none. So they tried. They were going to take certificates from the officers. These certificates travel with them, and once you take that from them, it's very hard for them to get a job anywhere else. if they had some things in their file. So couldn't take it away from them. Tried to make public the files, the police officers' files, so all the public could see the issues that the policemen had. Tried to take away rubber bullets. He tried to require officers to intervene when they were witnessing other officers that were doing misdeeds. They tried all that. Nothing happened. By the way, other states had similar results. So what do you think is holding up the states, the Democratic states, right? The ones that you would think could make this happen very quickly. What do you think is holding that up? A very easy answer: unions. As soon as they went back to their communities and started working with their reps, the unions dug their heels in. So interesting, that we're seeing issues more and more of the unions across teachers and police and government. And remember, post office, we've gone through that in the last few days. Same thing. So California can't pull it off. Biggest issue on the table today, and they can't make it happen. So maybe that should tell you something about the national election, to see if some of these progressive things that supposedly, once they get the supermajority, they can make happen. I think a good lesson in point is the first couple of years of the Obama administration, they had that supermajority, if you remember, and the most they could get done was Obamacare. Had to do that in the middle of the night, and had to do that with no Republican support. So it may remind some of us that are really scared of a Democratic supermajority, that in fact it's very difficult to get even all the Democrats together and their unions and all the minions that they have to pay attention to. Article number 5. Some experience in schools with COVID that opened early. So I thought it was an interesting article. It gave us a little feedback into what schools may look like as they start to open. But International Leadership of Texas College Station, it's a public charter school, K through 10th. I thought that was interesting. It ends at 10th. But they were opened August 13th. And so I thought some things were interesting that came out of it. They did temperature checks outside the school and midday. Why did they do it twice during the day? Well, some parents give their children flu medicine, which suppresses the temperature. And if you don't check midday, by midday their temperature could rise against once the medicine's out of their system. So check them twice a day. They laughed, and teachers said they've got a laser temperature system that they do in the cafeteria, and some of the students think they're checking their brains. So they closed the library. No water fountains were working. They're all closed. No sharing of books, pencils, etc. That's caused a huge issue because in some cases, labs and other things, books are shared because of the expense of books, and so it's creating a hardship there. No parents in the school, no visiting at all. They had a hybrid model. 40% were attending, and 60% are still at home. And by the way, this area has a large issue with COVID infections, so a lot of COVID positive cases in that community. So that would show why that only 40% are attending. By the way, it said masks are handled well, even by kindergartners. They said kindergartners don't have any more issues with a mask than any other grade level. And I know a lot of people said, how are you going to keep a kindergartner with a mask on all day? It happens. But the cafeteria didn't work for kindergartners. They really wanted to be close to each other, and so they're making them eat in their class at their desk to keep the separation. They do when they're walking in the hall. They do. I thought it was pretty interesting. They they call it a zombie check. So they make the students walk like zombies with their arms out. I don't know if this is going to, work well on the video here, but so that gives them some separation from the person in front of them. I thought that was pretty interesting. The kids like to act like a zombie, so that would be great. They said the social distancing is the toughest to enforce. The kids really tend to gravitate towards each other. We really are social beings, aren't we? And keep them 6 feet away in the cafeteria. By the way, said one of the observations that school is much quieter with all the masks and the separation, that it's kind of eerie in schools. It's much quieter. So I thought that would be interesting feedback for you from one of the schools. A couple more quick items. Ford's going to buy out 5% of the workers at retirement age. I think they've got about 30,000 white collar workers now, and they're going to try to get all those workers that are at retirement age or above, and convince them with some monetary buyouts to leave early. Ford's continuing on really trying to cut costs worldwide, and headcount's got to be a part of that. And when you can, the workers at retirement age usually are fairly well paid, and they're going to leave in a few years anyway. So inducement to leave works pretty well. And the last article is more schools are offering an online MBA program. Wake Forest, University of Illinois, Indiana University, and Howard University, to just name a few. And by the way, a few have gone to online only and stopped the 2-year in-class MBA. Just an observation, going back through my MBA, I think this would have been very difficult to do. One of the advantages of MBAs is getting together in teams and getting together in classrooms too. Our MBA class, I think, only had 19 or 20 students. But small teams, 4 or 5 students working all day Sunday on major projects, working on a major project would, how you do that online is very difficult. And, when I think of a lot of MBA programs, by the way, have fostered a lot of innovation, and a lot of people don't realize that. But a lot of great ideas have come out of MBA programs in team projects where they're working on a new idea that they've got to present in class, or new marketing, or so on. And so I can think of the burrito place out of Colorado came out of an MBA program, Qdoba's. I think that's, somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I believe that came out of an MBA program. There's lots of great, huge businesses that came out of MBA programs. And so you think about how well will that work in the future. And then, MBA programs, we had our lunch brought into us every evening. We would talk during lunch. We'd have a team. We were all a team. We're all eating lunch together and discussing what's going on in business and ideas and everything. So I fear that the MBA program is going to lose something, but we'll see. Everything has to change, and maybe it's time for it. So thanks again for joining me today. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you tomorrow with another great Wall Street Journal dissection. Cheers.